Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see the summary of In the Land of the Kappiris by S.K Pottekkatt. This is a travelogue written by renowned Malayalam author S.K Pottekkatt detailing his experiences traveling through Africa, specifically focusing on the lives and communities of the Kappiris, which is a term used to refer to the African people he encountered during his journey, essentially meaning in the land of the Africans as seen through his perspective as an Indian traveler. In South Rhodesia. South Rhodesia is a place in Africa where acute racial discrimination was practiced. It was ruled by white people. The degree of racial discrimination could be assessed by looking at Pottekkatt's strange journey to Rhodesia. There was a bogey dirtier than a cowshed where the Kappiris crammed themselves in. It was a claustrophobic dungeon where no sunlight could enter. However, there was the white coupe, which was an abode of luxury. In addition to that, the bouquet Pottekkatt sat in was informally reserved for Asians, and no white would even come there by chance, even though there was a lot of room in the compartment, since he was the lone Asian traveler. On reaching Bulawayo, he looked around for a porter to help him with luggages. Incidentally, he met a Tamilian porter who was more than happy to see an Indian, and particularly a Madarasi in Rhodesia. He expressed his desire to see India, the stories about it which he had heard luxuriously from his father, an indentured migrant. He refused to take any money for his work but gifted Pottekkatt a large gold leaf cigarette packet. In return, he requested for an eccentric favor, asking the author to send a magical thread or amulet from a Kerala magician to ward off his evil enemies and make his life prosperous. On detour in Rhodesia, he also saw the great Zimbabwe ruins, which shows the might of the tribe Sabians who drew away the indigenous Bushman tribe, thus owning the entire expanse of gold mines. The Portuguese had reached Rhodesia through the Zimbabwe River, but it was the British who held strong there. This is the story of Rhodesia, sandwiched between Zambezi and Limpopo rivers. The Victorian Falls. Victorian Falls is fascinating. Its average height is 347 feet tall. It could be described as a boulder of snowy mist falling freely through a majestic crevice amidst the gorges. The Victoria Falls originates in the plains in contrast to many others that originate from the hills and the mountains. From there, it traverses to great distance and has many islands floating on it. These islands divide the one majestic Zimbabwe into four waterfalls: the Eastern Contract, Rainbow Falls, the Main Falls, and Devil's Contract. The water droplets falling out from the falls get dispersed onto the evergreen forest beside the waterfall and is thus being rained over for millions of years. Pottekkatt also saw a footprint on a rock they named as Eve's footprint, which he equated to Sri Ramapadam at Ramalkamedu near the Pamba river. There is the statue of Lord Livingstone, who was the first European to witness the falls. There is also a carving of the year 1885 on the bark of a tree, which he first saw the falls. There is also the mention of a tree called Baobab, which is described as ugly with a large trunk and a bulging pot belly. It is indigenous to the Africans and is revered very highly. The Indians of East Africa. Pottekkatt mentions that the Indian population in Africa comprised mainly the Gujaratis, who were affluent businessmen. The rest of them were Malayalis, who occupied clerical jobs, and Tamilians, who did manual labor. However, the British were not favorable to the multitude of Indians in Africa, mainly because the Indians knew the language very well and had a very friendly attitude towards the Africans. They had everything from meat to clothes at one single place, which the English could never dream about. However, Pottekkatt does not have very good things to say about these greedy Banyas. He says that they are also the same mold as the British, are exploiting the Africans to make profit. Nevertheless, the British wants to drive out Indians from Africa so that they can have a monopoly in exploitation. In degree, the Indian exploitation is much less when compared to the Europeans. Pottekkatt then brings on an expert from the speech of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who constantly asked the Indians settled in Africa to work for the welfare of Africa. Pottekkatt criticizes the Indians who are proud of the Indianness but shy away from its essence. From Blantyre to Dodoma. Pottekkatt's journeys through the forest to Dar es Salaam or Tanzania. The route to Tanzania is to go to Beria by train and then proceed by ship. Pottekkatt travelled first to Lilongwe by bus, thinking to catch the train to Beira. On his way, one of his luggages went missing and he informed the askaris, that is the policeman, about it. Though the author did not have any hope in locating his bag, the askaris meticulously fetched it for him. Till date, he does not know how the askaris managed it. In Lilongwe, he met a Maharashtrian host, Mr. Darbe, who told Pottekkatt about his acquaintance, Mr. Gokhale, who was going to Dodoma in his lorry, which would traverse the forest, thus reducing the total distance considerably. Pottekkatt was more than happy to take this offer. Mr. Gokhale had only two things to talk about: his wife's culinary skills and the efficiency of his truck. Unfortunately, his truck's radiator failed and they were travelling through a drought-hit area. Hence, they had to buy water, which cost them more than petrol on their way. At Mbeya, Pottekkatt realized that the whites do not allow the natives to live within the city. They have separate space outside the city limits called the native towns. The whites are on a civilizing mission trying to make the Kappiris sophisticated. He fondly remembers Mr. V, an Englishman who is critical of the English ways. Looking back at Nyasa land. Unfortunately, Pottekkatt looked at Nyasa land with a stereotypical vision of Africa being a dark continent. Nyasa land is a dark country, its plains burnt and blackened by forest fires, its black people draped in black clothes. He takes the tone of a self-aggrandizing mission of civilization, which the Europeans fondly call as the white man's burden. Nyasa land has huge mineral wealth, but the British does not want to indulge in long-term projects since they do not know for how long they would be in Nyasa land. Hence, they only concentrate on tobacco cultivation. Nyasa Lake is the third largest lake in Africa. He mentions about the Ya tribe who came from Portuguese Africa. They have a custom called Unyongo, where the boys and girls are taught conjugal rights and the art of lovemaking. The Nigris are another tribe and have cannibalistic traits. They file their upper teeth and make them sharp and pointed. They do not even hesitate to feed on their own kith and kin. However, cannibalism has reduced considerably since the advent of the British. Swahili. Swahili is the common language of Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and Zanzibar. It means the language of the coastal land. The uniqueness of Swahili is that they start with tight consonant clusters like Tone and Sumko. Swahili has greatly borrowed from Arabic and even Hindi. It is a simple language with no script of its own and uses the English script. Pottekkatt once becomes a translator of Swahili between a bus driver and a penniless Englishman who boarded the bus. The Indian Vana. Indians mostly occupy the jobs of clerks or employees in private Indian school. They do not draw lucrative salaries. The Home's Salaries Commission had recommended a hike in the salary, but this no way reached the salary of the whites. However, since Africa is much cheaper than India, they could afford a luxurious lifestyle with splendid living rooms and 3 to 4 servants. They were given 4 months of leave and second-class tickets to visit their homelands in every 4 years. After retirement, these Indians were skeptical about returning to India since they are unsure about the way their motherland would treat them. He also talks about the antagonism that people from different parts of India have for each other, which is revised and reinforced in Africa. North Indians slight the Madrasis, Goans revel in the colonial glory, and likewise. Pottekkatt is deeply bothered about the trajectory of each intolerance and muses over how this could hold a nation together. And here ends the summary. If you have anything more to add on to what I've said, please write it in the comment box. Like the video, share it with your friends, And if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe and support. Thank you.